So I made these smoothies, and I'd given out 30 of them, and I need to go back and get the rest. And I'd left my keys inside the house. I could see through the kitchen window.
Yeah.
Those were all the products on the side. So kind of needs must, and a traffic cone went through the window.
Trials, tribulations, mistakes, barriers, successes and failures. Hear it here firsthand from those that have grown billion-dollar businesses to those that are just starting out. Winner of the Campaign Publishing Award for Best Business Podcast in the UK, Success is in the Mind is the only place where you can get a sense of business reality in a world full of idealism. Everyone claims to be an entrepreneur, but can everyone live up to the title? What does it take to start a business, to get your product into a high street store or grow a well-managed team? I'm Oliver Bruce, founder and entrepreneur myself. Join me as I interview business leaders and founders from across the globe, delving into what makes them tick, their differentiators and intrinsic motivators. This is Success is in the Mind. Success is in the Mind is proud to be sponsored by Coronation Wealth Management, a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. The team at Coronation Wealth provides services including retirement, investment, protection and business planning. To find out more, go to coronationwealth.co.uk. In this episode, we go deep into the revolution that's sweeping the world, that of the oat milk revolution. Founded in 2006 by Tom Mercer from a stall in Waterloo East, and now over a decade on, MOMA Foods has recently won a Great Taste Award for its Oat Milk Barista Edition, which I can vouch for is the only oat milk I have ever found that actually froths. Tom, whose market research strategy was nothing short of ingenious, discovered 4 years after MOMA's founding in 2010 that he had MS and incidentally lost his vision in one of his eyes. This, however, didn't stop Tom from growing a multi-million-pound business and kicking on. So from humble beginnings on a market stall in East London, is Tom the Lord Sugar of the oat world? MOMA, which stands for Making Oats More Awesome, I asked Tom why he went from the world of dairy into the world of oat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tom Mercer.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
So you're a University of Cambridge graduate. To use a food analogy, you're a smart cookie. You studied management studies at uni. Why did you go into the oat milk world?
The oat milk world. So after uni, I came to London and I was working as a management consultant. And I always wanted to do my own business, always thought I would do my own business. And I thought there was a gap in the breakfast market for a healthy, filling breakfast. But it was really driven by always wanting to be an entrepreneur and set my own business up.
So in terms of your background, your family, your dad essentially is the chairman of Mercer Farming. You're obviously Tom Mercer, so it runs in the family. You're a director there as well. I'm assuming this is a family farm.
Yeah, no, family farm. So we're kind of fourth generation family farmers now. So there was granddad, dad, and then and great granddad, and my brothers are both at home farming. So farm day to day. They do pigs and chickens and arable and all sorts of different stuff. So I'm the black sheep of the family, really. I came down to London, drawn by the bright lights of the big city. But I still am very much involved in the farm. I'm a director of the farm business. We have kind of quarterly meetings and so on, but I'm not kind of day-to-day active in running the business.
So why didn't you follow suit? Why didn't you jump into the family farm and kind of assist with the pig farming element?
I suppose when I was at uni, I was really excited about coming down to London and getting involved in city life. I was a little bit more academic than my brothers, so kind of went to Cambridge, and then that does open up a lot of opportunities for me, and kind of went down to London rather than kind of going back to the farm. I've always been interested in farming, but I never thought I would be a farmer.
So, I mean, going back to your time at University of Cambridge, what did you learn whilst reading management studies that set you up for the business that you're currently in? And who did you meet whilst at uni?
I did biology for my first 2 years at uni, which was great, but I wasn't into it enough to kind of, I found it was really hard work, and I wasn't into it enough to kind of really make a success of it. And then I changed course in my third year and did management studies, which was just a 1 year course. It's kind of basic sort of management skills. It was kind of like almost like a mini MBA. But it was really, I loved the people that I met on the course. They're really active, entrepreneurial, go-getting bunch of people. Our exams finished early in the summer term as well, so it meant we had most of the summer term to just relax and enjoy the summer term, which was brilliant. Yeah.
When you told your dad that you wanted to go and play with oats and barley and such like, what did he say? Because obviously all of his sons have gone into the hardcore world of pig farming, and you've gone to essentially mince up carrots in a food blender.
He was really supportive. He's unlike a lot of farmers, actually. He's quite progressive and or very progressive, and has never ever pushed me into farming. It's a lot of people in the farming world, it's always assumed that they'll end up going back to the farm, and they don't really have a choice in it. Or are never encouraged to kind of think outside of that world. Dad was always very encouraging of whatever I wanted to do. And I remember him down in the first couple of weeks that we launched the business. He came down to our railway arch at 2:30 in the morning, making products, then came to stalls, helped sell them, all that sort of stuff. He's been an advisor to the business as kind of like a non-exec director for the last 12 years or so, and he's been really helpful, actually.
I love the story of how you started. When you went to Tesco's, you bought the water bottles, you wrapped them up with your own label, sticking them on with Pritt stick, and then going and doing the market research the next day, handing them out in East London and asking for a business card in return. It's ingenious. How did you come up with that as market research?
So when I decided I wanted to set up my own business, I thought there's a gap in the breakfast market, and I used to blend oat-based smoothies and drink them on the way to work, walking over Waterloo Bridge every day. And I thought, actually, you know what, there's a business in this. There isn't really any healthy, filling, on-the-go breakfast out there. The way I went about it, I did my desktop research first. So I sent out a SurveyMonkey email to about 200 people, asking them what their breakfast eating habits were. And it came back with, what people ate, what was important to them at breakfast time, and what was important was something that was healthy, filling, and quick and convenient. So healthy, filling, and fast was my mantra in terms of what I wanted to create. So I thought, okay, this is the academic or the research rationale for it, and I need to actually test it on the marketplace. And that test you're referring to, I went down to New Covent Garden Market, bought a load of fruit, got some oats from the supermarket, as you say, bought the water bottles from Tesco, took them back, took the labels off, printed off new labels at Bain where I worked, and Pritt stick them on the bottles, and then spent all night chopping fruit, blending with oats and yogurt and apple juice, and creating oat smoothies. This was in my living room in Waterloo. My poor flatmate, he didn't get much sleep that night. There was a blender whirring away below. And every now and again, he'd get the smell of smoke as kind of another blender burnt out. So I made these smoothies and then went out onto the street in Waterloo. And the aim was to kind of give them out to people, take their business cards, and then email them a survey about what they thought. And I've given out 30 of these products. This was under a bridge in Waterloo on which is a real thoroughfare from Waterloo Station up to Blackfriars. And I'd given out 30 of them, and I need to go back and get the rest. So I walked over to my house, which was just around the corner. And I'd left my keys inside the house. It was one of those doors that locks automatically. And I could see through the kitchen window. Those were all the products on the side that I'd spent all night making. So kind of needs must, and a traffic cone went through the window. I managed to break in and kind of rescue all the other oat smoothies and give them out to people. Incidentally, my landlord was very kind, and they put it down to wear and tear.
Is that right? Was with the smoothies that you created? You don't necessarily do smoothies as much anymore. What's the reasoning for that? Because you're famous, very much so recently, for the oat milk that you guys produce. There's massive competition in the market. I have to say, a big advocate of the MOMA oat milk. It actually does froth in a cappuccino, which is a lot more to say than others do. Why did you pivot from smoothies into porridges into oat milk?
Oh, we've pivoted loads over the years, and I suppose this is one of the big stories about our journey and kind of lessons for anybody else that might be interested, really. So we started off with the stalls in the train stations. It was all about getting a healthy, importantly filling breakfast. It made a real difference to me if I had a filling breakfast. I'd get a lot more out of my mornings, and I realised that oats were really good, and hence the kind of my oat smoothies. The oat smoothies originally were great. They were a mainstay of our stalls, but we also then developed birch muesli and what we called a hodgepodge, which was fruit compote, yogurt and granola. So we had a really good array of products, but all based on oats. And then there've been several pivots along the journey. So it was focused on the stalls in the train stations, and then our efforts went on the Birchie muesli itself. So oats, yogurt and fruit. It was a great breakfast product, and we were kind of easily the number one player on the UK market. But it's proved to be a bit more niche than I hoped. But that grew really nicely, and we pushed that really hard for several years, and then that started to plateau, and we changed our focus onto porridge, and porridge was really strong for us for 5 or 6 years, and is still strong, but is not growing at the same rate. This last couple of years, we've really focused on oat milk, and oat milk has been great actually. Last year was really tough at the beginning of last year. Went into our porridges started to plateau a bit, and then we went into COVID, and our sales really dropped a lot. We do a lot into food service, so pubs, airlines, that sort of thing. All of that was zero. Even our sales into supermarkets, that dropped quite a lot because we do a lot of porridge in pots, and they're great for people to grab a quick breakfast on their way to work. Our porridge turnover dropped by 40% last year, actually, so it's really significant.
Blimey.
But we changed to oat milk, and oat milk was great for us. It did really well last year, and then this year, we'll be about 60% of our turnover this year. So it's really changed a lot.
Because you've kind of predicted the trend of oat milks becoming quite cool, and there's so many different players on the market, from Oatly to Jord to Outpro. How do you compete with such massive businesses?
It is. I compare oat milk at the moment, or plant-based milk at the moment, as the bit of the Wild West of plant-based milk, in that companies are chucking all sorts of products out there. I think oat is the one to back. It's the milk that is doing best. It's growing way faster than almond and soy, and that's kind of based on its taste credentials, its functionality, and also its sustainability credentials. But there is quite a lot of variability within oats as well, within the quality of the different oat milks. And the consumers still it's very early days in terms of consumers understanding oat milk. And there will be a lot of development over the next 5 years, I'd say. So how do we compete with them? The first thing is just getting the product right to start with. I think we've got a brilliant product on the marketplace, and consumers do notice the difference. That's the most important thing, actually. Kind of for me, it's always product first, and then brand and marketing second, because you can spend loads of money on marketing, and it really does help. But unless the product's good, it's not going to be sustainable. Whereas the way we've gone about it is getting the product right first, and we've got some really strong sales on the marketplace, and then we'll back that up with marketing, like a bigger marketing push probably going into next year.
So dialing back the clock to when you did your market research, and you were in East London, you were handing out these smoothie pots, you quite quickly realised that there might have been a gap in the market for this. You had quite a good response from those individuals that you picked up the business cards from. It wasn't long until you handed your notice in at Bain & Co. What was their response to you going, thanks very much, guys, I'm off to go and sell smoothies?
I've got to say they've always been really supportive, and it was one of the things that attracted me to Bain originally was when I was at uni at Cambridge, and John Wright from Innocent came round as part of the Bain presentation to grads, to undergrads, and he said, how he was at Cambridge, went to Bain really supported him in his journey, gave him a leave of absence to look into the whole Innocent idea before he eventually left his job, and that entrepreneurial attitude from corporate company like Bain is really attractive, and so they attract more entrepreneurial people with an entrepreneurial mindset, I would say. They were really supportive actually, and have remained supportive since.
And what did you do at Bain specifically?
Mainly Excel spreadsheets. So I was quite junior, obviously, and It was consulting on all sorts of different stuff, but I'd just be the junior member of the team, so kind of a lot of market research, Excel spreadsheets, putting together PowerPoint presentations. They didn't let me loose on clients too often. It was mainly Excel spreadsheets, which I still pride myself on my Excel spreadsheets. But those were the main skill I learned. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good skill to have, specifically in this day and age. But looking back, East London market stall success, we've heard it all before. I introduced you as the Lord Alan Sugar of the oat world. Now, how did you start your business? You pumped 10 grand in, I think, from your savings account into launching MOMA. What was the sort of logic behind literally putting everything you had into getting this business off the ground? What happens if you lost it all?
It's funny, it's there's some money I'd saved from my time at Bain, and it was a bit of a risk. But I think the risk is a lot lower when you're when you're younger, almost the opportunity cost is lower because you've not got a really well-paid job, you've not got a family, you've not got a mortgage, that sort of thing. So it's a big kind of contradiction or kind of challenge for me as kind of being an entrepreneur is the more experienced you are, the more chance you've got of making it work almost. I was 26 when I left my old job. I was confident in the idea, and we did it on although it was £10,000. That was a small amount compared to what people would typically spend on setting a business up. We bought a filing cabinet from a company in the city. It was a wide drawer Bisley filing cabinet. We bought a second-hand van from a guy down in Carshalton. It was an old BT van. It's really basic stuff. Our first branding project cost £2,000 for the whole thing. If we could get marketing and branding done for that these days, it would be amazing. It's a different ball game now, unfortunately.
It is. And you say jumping ship back then was slightly easy because you had a lot less to lose. You also had, I suppose, your family supporting you if it did go Pete Tong. For those that have got a job, let's just say on six figures in the city, in London, and they have a business idea and they want to jump ship, but actually they have got a £150,000 salary to lose and a family to support, what would you say to them?
As boring as it is, I think you have to be really, really... The business plan and the idea has to be really solid, and it's really basic when you talk about it afterwards. But people get really lost in it and lost in an idea that they're really passionate about. But you have to be really super objective about, is this a good product? Will people buy it? Will enough people buy it? Will they pay the price point that I need in order to be able to get a profit and be able to make a sustainable business of this? Don't just get your friends to test the product and all tell you it's brilliant. Get some people who are totally impartial to kind of test your product and give you really honest and candid feedback, because it's a lot better to have that knock at that stage rather than get 2 years down, having spent hundreds, maybe of thousands of pounds on something, and then realize that actually fundamentally the product's not quite right and you need to pivot and change to do something different.
And how did you know that you were not as good at the marketing side, the branding side, the visual side, and you were more analytically sort of favoured, I suppose? What made you realise that?
They used to do this test at... It was a personality test, a Myers-Briggs test, and it's kind of describing a can of Coke. And all the people who are kind of really analytical describe it as, a cylindrical aluminium can of this diameter or something. Whereas people are more creative, say, it's all about Christmas or imperialism and like kind of corporate power or whatever.
I just say it's red.
Yeah. You'll be more like me. So I think I'm quite creative in terms of, I think it's really important to let your imagination lead you from an innovation point of view. But in terms of visual design and marketing are not my strong points as much. Yeah.
Our sponsors, Coronation Wealth Management, provide a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. This is how Coronation Wealth helped a co-founder and director in the food and drink sector.
Being a new co-founder, Coronation Wealth are helping us to understand what we can do with our business and advising us on business financial planning. Personally, looking at mine and my husband's investments and retirement planning is also a stress reliever.
Coronation Wealth Management LLP is an appointed representative of and represents only St James's Place Wealth Management plc, which is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority for the purpose of advising solely on the group's wealth management products and services, more details of which are set out on the group's website www.sjp.co.uk/products. So you've had your notice in at bay and you've realised that the footfall is good enough for you to start this business. You open up essentially your first stall in Waterloo East. You then go to Vauxhall and you then go to Canary Wharf. It's pretty aggressive growth over the next year or so. How did you build these stands, grow the business and staff it with 10 grand?
It was really hard to start with. It was honestly, it was like kind of 18-hour days. It was really tough. And I was down in the kitchen every day as well as selling the products on the stalls. So, but yeah, it was pretty brutal actually, because we start work in the kitchens at 2:30 in the morning. So often, I'd get up at quarter 2:45, get down to the kitchens in the van, make the products, deliver them. And I remember I used to, when I get to traffic lights in the van, I'd have to put the van in neutral. Otherwise, I'd nod off at the wheel and then start driving along. You need to do all the really basic crappy jobs, and you need to learn all those bits, and you need to be there doing it. And it's quite annoying sometimes when people say, you got to step back, look at the big picture, just add value, that sort of stuff. And it's, well, if you can't afford to employ people to do that, do the other jobs, then you need to do them all yourself, and you need to be earning enough money to be able to afford all those other things. So there is that pinch point right at the beginning where you need to be doing everything. This isn't to say that if you've got the investment and you've got the team around you, then definitely do that. You don't want to be in that situation of kind of in the thick of it, in the trenches for too long. But it's hard to get out of it sometimes. I'm not saying there's an easy answer, but it can be challenging. Yeah.
So you were doing your 18-hour days. You were obviously delivering this product to location, be it Waterloo East or otherwise. You had a team of people that were working from Vauxhall and from Canary Wharf. How much money did you start to make in the first year, and how did it grow organically?
First year, maybe we made a turnover, probably, I think it was $250,000, and then maybe it's even £1 million in the second year, or year 3. Year 2 or year 3 was £1 million. So it did grow quickly. I can't remember the first year. We did make a little bit of money, kind of broke even, made a little bit of money / broke even. And then we did for the first couple of years. After that, we started losing money for 7 years actually, so it was too long. But then we started making money. Yeah.
So you lost money for 7 years. How did you keep the business afloat?
We had various investors come on board and invested in the business, and that would they really liked the product particularly, and they invested in me and the team as we grew the business. But the cash that went in was relatively small, really. And it really kind of kept the business going through those loss-making years. So it was really kind of, to keep kind of business as usual going.
How much did they invest, Tom?
We had about £1 million investment over the years, but over kind of 7 years or so, yeah.
So you weren't losing that much if it was just £1 million that you needed to find over 7 years?
Yeah, no. I mean, if I was setting a business up now, I would back myself a lot more, and I'd try and raise that £1 million or over £1 million in one go, and really kind of go out to the market and make it work quickly or fail quickly. Whereas what we did then was kind of grow. It's kind of a cross between, is more towards the organic end of the scale, but kind of propped up by this drip of investment each year, really, to kind of keep things going. Yeah. But what we did was really kind of build the brand through the stalls and the train stations. And then we were able to pivot the business from the stalls to the birch muesli, from the birch muesli to the porridge, and then from the porridge to the oat milk. So the last round of investment was really, it's still when birch muesli was going really well. So it wasn't really so it's almost like we've had 3 different businesses, actually.
So you mentioned you had a business partner. What kind of stake does your business partner have in the business? Is it 50-50? And, how important is it to have someone, a colleague, a business partner, an advisor that you can almost go to off the record and drive together?
So they've got about a third of what I've got in the business. I think kind of having those advisors is really, really important. And you can shortcut a lot of errors in the business by going to somebody and having somebody on board as an advisor, whether they're paid or they have a little bit of equity or something like that. In terms of having a day-to-day business partner, a lot of people assume that they should have one, and I did. But I would really caution people to challenge their thinking on that as to whether they think they need a partner or not. Because I think there's a lot of business partnerships that don't really work. You only really hear about the ones that do work, but you don't hear about the ones that don't work. So challenge yourself as to why you need a business partner, what they're bringing, and whether your skills complement each other. So for me personally, it didn't really work out, actually. Kind of we ended up going our own ways, and that's kind of with all respect to the business partner, but we parted company after a couple of years. And in hindsight, I would challenge whether I needed somebody in the first place, or whether my money would have been better going just employing 2 more people to help me with all that day-to-day stuff that I was talking about, to help me get out of the trenches.
And in terms of, so looking at the branding of MOMA, it hasn't changed vastly over the last sort of 10, 15 years or so. I think the branding's great. Who came up with that? Was it internal? Was it external? How did you develop that in the early days?
We've had a few different iterations of it over the years. So there was a guy at the beginning, a guy called David Jenkins, or Jocko as he's known in the design world. He's been around quite a few different agencies in London. So he worked as a freelancer for us to start with, and he did the very initial design, which was kind of a Financial Times style branding on the side of the stalls, which was really cool, and I loved it. And then we changed a few times. We had two big design projects, one by a company called Pearl Fisher and one by a company called Brand Opus. And the last one was in 2015. So yeah, it's been the same for the last 6 years.
So you're kind of making hay whilst the sun shines to a certain extent. Up until 2010, things are going really well. People know who you are. The brand is in shops and is recognised. You then discover that you've been diagnosed with MS. You start to lose the sight in one of your eyes. How the hell did you push through such a negative barrier?
Firstly, I'm really lucky with my MS. It's relatively mild, and it's not really, I've not lost any work because of it, not kind of had to take any time off work, but it's obviously it's just like a slightly unpredictable condition. I suppose I've always been fairly positive. I think you always have to be fairly optimistic as an entrepreneur. But yeah, I've never let it affect me too much, and I actually consider myself really lucky. There's a lot more people in a lot worse situations, and I've had a very fortunate life generally. So it's just one of those. Just deal with it and do what you can, whether you need to go on some drugs or change your diet or that sort of thing. So it's been I suppose it's a reasonably significant thing in my life, but I just kind of get on with it and I don't really let it affect me.
That's incredibly diplomatic and admirable, and it's sort of that great British stiff upper lip kind of analogy there where you say, just crack on. There must have been days where you got out of bed and you thought, bugger this, can't do it.
Not in relation to MS at all. In relation to kind of the business generally, yeah, there's definitely some tough times. There's been lots. If you look at our journey, it's been a real roller coaster. And I said those pivots from the stalls. The stalls were great actually, and they didn't not work. And yeah, there's definitely times that you think, crikey, we're working really hard at this. It shouldn't be this hard. And that's when kind of the objectivity comes in, and you really need to kind of examine what you're doing rationally and look at the bits that are working and where you need to change tack a little bit. But most good entrepreneurs they will find a way through, but it won't always be with the product they launch with. And there's several people I know and people that have worked at MOMA and stuff in the past that have gone on and set their own businesses up, and it's not been with the right product, but then they've pivoted and they've done something a little bit different. And the person themselves will make success of things, but it won't necessarily be the thing that they set out with.
So you realise it might not be necessarily working as well as you'd hoped. You pivoted slightly. You obviously had to diversify in terms of releasing new products. Who does your product development and who does the flavour development? Because that's so hard to get right.
Yeah, on our porridge, a woman called Kate. She's been with us for about 6 years, and she's great. So she started off in sales and marketing, and then kind of went on to innovation and marketing. And the porridge is really kitchen development style stuff. It's sitting down there with your oats, your different flavourings, your different fruits, all of that sort of stuff, and kind of mixing it up till you've got the right thing. And we put loads of attention into getting the right balance between the different sorts of oat flakes in there as well. Thick oats to give it a proper chunkiness, but the thin oats to give it a slightly creamier flavour and the quick cook time. Whereas oat milk is very different. It's kind of more of a sciencey approach, and we've got Ryan on board. He always reminds me that he's Dr. Ryan. We're quite rightly so. So he's got his PhD and in chemistry, and he's come on board and he's kind of working on our recipes within the oat milk side of things. So it's a very different approach. It's all kind of water baths and overhead stirrers and scales and all that sort of stuff. It's
Does he wear a white lab coat?
Absolutely, yeah. White lab coat and safety goggles, and he's. It's when I say lab, we've got a table with some bits of equipment on in the back of our office, but it works really effectively actually, and he's excellent. And kind of having somebody on board like that who's really passionate about the product but has got also the academic background behind it is really important.
So whose idea was it to partner with the homeless charity and do this innovative idea that was the Oat Cuisine back in 2018? That was a great idea, but it didn't really go any further than just a charitable fundraiser as far as I can see. Yeah,
the Oat Cuisine. So we had a pop-up stall, or pop-up restaurant in Soho Square, and which was great actually. It was a we raised some money for charity, and it was a great way of showcasing oats and everything that could be done with oats. We had an 8-course tasting menu, all made with oats. So everything from kind of peaches with an oat granola to a oat-based soup and oat risotto. And
you had an oat burger, which is quite something.
Yeah, no, it was great actually. And it was fantastic. Yeah, we loved it. And but it was always a kind of a one-off campaign and push really to kind of just to highlight what we could do with oats and really to position ourselves and as oat experts within the field. And that's something that we really push on now. We're doing oat milk, and the fact that we've been doing oats for almost 16 years now, and gone from Butch Muesli and have a depth of experience and sales on the market in porridge as well, I think gives us real credibility within oat milk. And we back that up by all the research we do, by having an in-house scientist and kind of just really knowing our stuff. And oat milk's not as easy as, you can't just bang one out on the marketplace. You really need to understand all the detail behind it. And that's where consumers will become more educated and will understand over time kind of what makes the difference between a good oat milk and a not so good one.
In terms of how important having shelf space in supermarkets is, the world has gone ever more online. Arguably, we do often buy our food from, shops that we go to, for instance. Now, have you seen a definite change during the pandemic? Have you seen an uplift in online purchases?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, online's growing a lot faster for us than other channels, which is to be expected. But supermarkets is still 2/3 of our sales. The other third is not all online. It's kind of food service and travel and that sort of stuff. But yeah, the online side is kind of doubling each year, whereas supermarkets is growing but at a slower rate, and that will continue to happen. I think that shift will continue to happen. It's concerning when you've got products on the shelves in retailers, because it puts pressure on the retailers, and they respond by trying to consolidate their range and basically have a simpler range on shelf, which makes things easier from their point of view, which means that there's less brands on shelf ultimately. So I don't see the marketplace, I don't see this trend changing. I think people will kind of continue to buy more and more online.
So over the last 15 years, you've learnt a lot. You clearly know what to do, what not to do, and I'm sure you'd do things fundamentally differently now if you had to start the business again. What was the one thing, Tom, that you'd tell yourself if you had to start it all over again?
It comes down to this passion versus objectivity message that I said before. It's be really super rational and critical of yourself and objective about your idea early on. Seek external opinions from people. Make sure that your product is a good enough product. If it is a good enough product, make sure you can produce it at a price that's going to give you a sustainable profit, which is not always the case. People will chat to me, they've got this amazing product, it tastes delicious, but it costs the earth and no one's going to pay for it. Just having that objectivity is really key. You don't want the objectivity to crush that passion and restrict it, but it needs to be there in tandem with the self-belief and the passion and the confidence. You need to have that kind of real rational viewpoint as well.
And coming from such a agricultural and farming background, and with your finger on the pulse as much as it is regarding alternative milk, is it quite a contagious, or contentious, I should say, subject between the family and your friends from that community with regards to organic milk from cows?
Yeah, it can be a little bit. I grew up on a dairy farm actually. We don't do the dairy anymore, but but back home a lot of kind of family friends and stuff are dairy farmers, but I've never really had any tricky conversations with them. The trickiest conversation has been with one of our investors actually, who's kind of in the dairy world.
So hold on, there's a dairy investor investing in an alternative milk brand.
Previous investor. So the investor. So before we did the oat milk, but I would say the move towards plant-based is unstoppable. Really, it's the trend that's going to happen, and it's something I kind of realised a few years ago that this was a nascent trend that was going to happen and will continue to happen for the next 50 years. We'd spent the last 13 years building up an oat brand, so it made a lot of sense for us to go into oat milk and really push this hard. So yeah, we do. I suppose there's been one or two tricky conversations, but we're an oat brand. We're not a vegan brand. We have dairy in lots of our products as well, in our Bircher muesli and some of our porridge, but we're really championing the oats. The oats has been what we've been about since day one, and oats make great porridge, whether they've got milk in them or they make kind of a great vegan option if you don't want, and you want a purely plant-based product as well. And that's kind of where the oat milk comes in, particularly, as a dairy alternative product. But we don't look at it really as a dairy alternative product. I think it's and the main driver for people moving to plant-based milk, in my view, will be reduction in greenhouse gases. That's kind of the main issue facing the world at the moment and over the next 10 years. And that will be the reason people move towards plant-based milk, and particularly oat milk, I think.
And another subject that is facing the world, and a lot of people are talking about at the moment, is the impact on mental health that, the pandemic has had, work-life balance in offices. Starting a business up has a huge amount of sort of negativity around it, because you have to put so much time into fundamentally getting the business off the ground. You put in 18-hour days. How did that impact your mental health in the early stages of the business?
I remember feeling after 4 months that I felt like, I'd just been like beaten for 4 months and you desperately needed a bit of a break. But mental health wise, no, it was fine. I think you just kind of need to have those people around you who will support you. Make sure you take breaks as well, which I haven't often been as good at. But for me, taking breaks, doing exercise, and having those people around you that will support you, that you can chat to as well. I think those are the three things for me that are kind of really important in terms of your health, and particularly your mental health. Yeah.
So you've started to take a small step back from MOMA. What do you do with the free time that you have now got, apart from maybe catch up on sleep from the expensed hours early on in the business? Well,
it's not so much a step back. It's just changing my role slightly, and kind of having that founder role enables me to, as I say, focus on some of the product development a bit more. So I spent the last 2 years really heavily invested in oat milk, particularly, and kind of looking at how we can take that forward, and kind of developing all sorts of stuff around the oat milk, and then kind of looking for investment in the business, that sort of stuff. So it's just a slightly different role rather than stepping back as much. But what would I like to do? I think kind of I've always liked to invest a bit more time in myself. I'm not as good. I've always been like 110% into the business, and not enough time, not taking enough time for reading and furthering my own development and so on. That's been my kind of weakness. That's always there, really.
So what does success fundamentally look like for MOMA, for a business, and for yourself, Tom?
I think the thing that makes me really proud about the business is, or what makes me really happy about the business, is having a team that I really like and are proud of, that I like as individuals, and we all get on well, and they're a friendly team that I think kind of reflect our values as a business, but also very, really competent at their jobs. When I get feedback from consumers, there's nothing better. Getting an email or a letter from somebody, or going to a trade show and somebody just loving the product. You can't quite beat that, and that's better coming from individuals or from small coffee shop owners than it is from a supermarket buyer. These guys are just super passionate about what they're doing, just as we are, and it's just really invigorating. Actually, we were at our first trade show the other week for 2 years, and talking to those smaller coffee shop owners just really invigorated me, actually, and kind of gave me a real buzz after kind of 2 years or 18 months of pandemic. So that was really good. So from MOMA, what does success look like? So I love that consumer feedback. I love having a really good team that I'm proud of, that is really effective as well. But then growing a brand that we're proud of, that we really believe in, but also delivers commercially as well. That's a really important element of it. And it's a kind of a self-sustaining loop. You've got to be sustainable and profitable as a business to be able to keep reinvesting in the business and creating that thing that you're really proud of, that consumers really want and people buy into, and people not only like the product, but they can be inspired by the brand as well. So that's success for MOMA from my point of view.
No, Tom, you can have this one for free, genuinely. I love the product. I think it's excellent. It froths like no other oat milk on the market. If I want to go and buy some more, where do I go to get MOMA?
You could go to Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Ocado, Amazon, or our own web shop, or Costco if you live near a Costco.
Well, I'm going to go to the cupboard to make some porridge now. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show, Tom.
Great. Thanks very much, Oliver. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode. For more information, check out the description where you can find exclusive video snippets on my YouTube channel, as well as contact details and links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please show your support as always by subscribing. If you or someone you know should be on the show, please email me via oliver@pinpoint-media.co.uk and I promise I'll get back to you. Remember, there's never a good time to start a business, but in business, you should always have a good time. Take care. Success in the Mind is proud to be sponsored by Coronation Wealth Management, a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. The team at Coronation Wealth provides services including retirement, investment, protection and business planning. To find out more, go to coronationwealth.co.uk. This podcast is supported by our media partner, Blocks & PR, who represent some of the most powerful brands within the luxury, lifestyle and fashion sector. Go and check them out at blocksandpr.com.